This is your host of CivilNet, Eric Hacopian, and we're very honored today to be joined by the High Commissioner of Diaspora, Zareh Sinanyan. Thank you, Mr. Sinanyan, for making time for us.
Thank you very much.
There's obviously a lot of concrete questions and important questions that have been with us since the war started, but have become far more acute and relevant since the war ended. And one of them is, instead of like telling you, asking you the question, I'm going to tell you a story. This morning I was on live with a diaspora blogger, and who has a significant audience. And one of the issues that came up that I had to answer was this issue of this monies from Armenia Fund being transferred to the state. And my response was to try to put it into context that, first of all, where did you expect that money to go to? Because after all, the war and all the aid issues with refugees and things were being run through the state, so it's only rational for the money to go there. I think part of the issue was that I don't think Armenia Fund clearly communicated that, so I think it caused us a level of confusion, so I can't really blame people for not understanding that. And the other thing I told them was that $150 million in the context of me and you is a lot of money and individuals, and obviously it's fantastic that all of us, everybody partake and gave more than they could, and it's a wonderful thing, and we should all be grateful and thankful to them. But in the context of a state, and more specifically in the context of a war that's costing $35 million a day, it's a rounding error, unfortunately. So I wanted to put that in a context. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to clarify these issues, because I think there's a lot of uncertainty. Who do we give to? How does this work? How much transparency is there? So please let us know what your position is and what the government's position is on clarifying these issues.
Sure, and I think Armenia Fund has the responsibility to provide minutiae of detail about how the money was spent and so on and so forth. But on a global level, you've answered the question already. I mean, you said it in a way that I, because of certain limitations, can't even say. And the fact is, had we prevailed in this war, or had we, at least the result not been as catastrophic as it is, no one would be asking this question. I think the answer that you gave is clear to everyone. It's just people are in denial. And in asking questions about Armenia Fund, there's two kind of streams of thought. The first is, there's a certain segment out there associated with the old regime that just wants to, they'll stir up any issue, no matter how absurd or ridiculous, in order to create destabilization in Armenia, create a coup. That's the end goal that they're seeking. But that's only one segment who's kind of fueling this issue. And then there's another segment who, in asking this question, is seeking some magical answer, some silver bullet explanation as to why we lost. Why we lost has little or nothing to do with how the Armenia Fund money was raised and transferred and so on. It really doesn't, but it is an indication of the general psychological state of especially the diaspora, who is hurt, who is emotionally damaged, as are all of us, and wants answers. And some of the answers that are being sought are very legitimate and very logical, and some simply aren't. They know the answer. They know the answer. But again, the time will come when the audit is conducted, when there's a full accounting, and that accounting will be provided, and the question will be answered sort of on a micro level. But on a macro level, you've already answered that question. And I do want to take the opportunity again. I want to thank our compatriots, our brothers and sisters throughout the diaspora and in Armenia. Let's remember that the single biggest contingent who gave money was actually the population of the impoverished country of Armenia. Let's remember that. But having said that, I want to thank our brothers and sisters for coming together for that ridiculous, explosion of patriotism and the readiness to sacrifice and readiness to help, which was manifested in various ways, including by contributing to Armenia Fund.
One of, I, like many other people, and I'm sure you, every single day I will get some correspondence from, good people who want to help in very specific areas. whether it's a psychologist from Australia, whether it is a doctor from France, whether it's a teacher from Argentina. And what all of these people want to know is, where do I go? Who do I deal with? Do I deal with, is there, if I'm a teacher, do I deal with teachers here? First of all, what's your answer to all of these, frankly, wonderful people that we have that want to engage? What address do we give them? And how well is your system set up to be able to handle all of these offers? Because I'm assuming there will be some people that are not particularly, their expertise are not that easy to find matches with. Do you have a platform to use all of these people?
We have the experience, and we are creating the platform. We have the experience due to COVID, because when COVID happened, we were the body in the government that coordinated the flow of medical professionals to Armenia. And during the war, we were also tasked with the coordination of volunteers, and the volunteers were 3 categories. Basically, people who just wanted to come and help with logistics and with just social groups and so on and so forth. The second category were doctors, again, healthcare professionals, whose flow continues to this day, thankfully, because we need an enormous amount of help in that area, especially with rehabilitation of our soldiers, both psychological and physical. And the third category was the volunteers who wanted to go and fight at the front. With the exception of the volunteers who wanted to come and fight, we really had a pretty smooth system going on, which was very productive. With the volunteers, we had difficulty dealing with the Defense Ministry and the Artsakh military, and that issue was very complicated. A bunch of questions that I think we will have to get answers to in the future. But we have the experience of being the coordinating body of the aid that came from the diaspora, the volunteers that came from the diaspora, as well as channeling the financial assistance into one flow, which was Armenia Fund, because for the lack of any other. So we have the structure, we know how to work with the diaspora. We love these types of people because, despite the fact that there is certainly a rift between the diaspora and Armenia right now, there are still people who understand that you need to stand with your homeland at this moment, at its difficult moment. And now is the time to come and help. Now is not the time to resign from the idea of helping the homeland. Now is not the time to move away, walk away, or just complain or be angry or be hurt. Now is not the time for people, people calling for my resignation. Irresponsible people for whom the idea of desertion is a way of life. And they're calling for me to resign, walk away from my homeland, from doing my job at the time when my work is needed the most. They'll never see that happen because I will never desert my position. And these people who now choose to come and help Armenia are exactly the patriots that we need.
What's the action? Let's just be practical.
Yeah.
I'm in Argentina. Where do I go? What's the website that I go? Who do I email?
They can communicate. They can call. They can simply email diaspora@gov.am.
Okay.
They can call our office. We have a website. We have a Facebook page. We have pretty much every other social media platform that's out there. They can find easily multiple ways to communicate with us, and we will make that match. This is in the works only because we certainly recognize the fact that there is a certain dysfunctionality with the Ministry of Social Affairs and the Ministry of Emergency Situations. As a result, there are new ministers appointed, but that'll work itself out. We will be there to make sure and push and make sure that every single person who wants to come and stand by their homeland right now and by their people will get to the right place.
Well, Mr. Sinanyan, I'll just ask you to I know you'll do this, but give us a personal pledge that anybody who reaches out will get an answer.
Everybody,
I will ask you.
Everybody that reaches out will get an answer.
I appreciate that.
There may be a time component involved, but they will certainly get an answer.
My third question, obviously, outside of the security situation, the war situation, the world is in an economic mess. And in probably a worldwide recession. There's no other way to describe it. In some places, a depression. I think our economy, because of COVID, is declining by 8% this year. which is in line with in most other economies in the world, unfortunately. And the economic recovery, especially going into 2021, is key.
Of course.
And I can just tell you, I'm making matches just as an individual between businesses here and customers abroad. Just, doing my little piece of it. What can you do? What can your office do to serve as a platform? For example, I am a diasporan business person that needs to outsource something. Is there a place that I can go to on your site to say, okay, this is the outsourcing. If you need graphics done, you can come here and get it done. Same, much cheaper, same quality, sometimes better quality. If there's animation that needs to be done, if there's programming that needs to be done. Do you have a setup like that to sort of facilitate business growth and development and relationships?
So as far as matching itself, business matching, we don't really have a structure set up, but we certainly will and can do that. Just because our staff, including our office manager, are people who have been in the sort of the private field in Armenia for a long time, and anyone who knows me knows that I know how to work with investors. But more importantly, we also have the task of ushering or concierging diasporan investments in Armenia. So that is within our responsibilities. I will tell you honestly that in the last year and 6 months that I've been in Armenia, my biggest frustration has been getting the investment projects to a point of success. Success being they commence, they've succeeded, the fruition, and they're already functional. And the system has been very slow and very cumbersome, and really a remnant of the old. The more is this, that in the past you would pay a bribe and things would get done, and after the revolution you couldn't pay a bribe but things wouldn't get done. I mean, this was a real serious problem, and we worked on this patiently, continue working on it. I believe that this, whatever happened during the war and this, the defeat that we suffered, is an impetus to put a bigger stress on better business practices, better ushering of business investments, more appreciation of the economy, because at the end of the day, every problem starts and ends with the economy. If you have a strong economy, you can pay for the world-class military or modern military. You can pay for good education. You can have science. You can have arts. You don't have money, you're not going to have any of it. So it's the beginning and the end of everything.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. I'm not in government, so I can be critical of government. And one of the things that, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, is one thing that we had that this showed, this defeat in the war, that we had a total system failure in the government, in our systems, total systems in Armenia itself. And I can say as a diasporan, we had system failure in the diaspora institutions, frankly, I can say that. Part of it is, the system failure is a lack of professional talent in running things. One of the things that I always get is like, well, how do we get the best and the brightest into these governmental institutions to run things when there are so many legal barriers in doing so? You cannot be a minister, you can't be, how do you get the best and the brightest to come here and take positions of leadership when the legal systems don't allow it? And let's be practical about it. The government that you're a part of has been in office for a year and a half, 2 years. It has a humongous mandate, can change the laws at will. You have humongous majorities. I know you're not necessarily a party, you're not a member of parliament, but what can you do to rectify this, and why hasn't it been done?
Sure, and I realized this problem very early on after I got appointed, because obviously once you start working with different jurisdictions and different ministries, the problem is so apparent, it's so blatant, you can't miss it. And the realization of this problem has led for several, to several programs that we introduced. The latest one was eGords, the idea being, bring foreign educated diasporans and inject them in the government and various levels of government. Unfortunately, it was our first year. We had budgeted for 100 specialists, and because of the COVID, because of the war, we don't have that number, but we have 50 committed diasporans right now working in the government as a result of that program. But that's only one component of it, right? That's not a systemic solution. It's like, again, it's one step in one direction. We need a systemic change, which I've been pushing for, and I believe the government and the parliament have basically done very little to push this agenda along. The idea was that with the constitutional reforms, which were planned in the next year, year and a half, there would be an elimination of the constitutional limitation on Armenians, or the type of Armenians that can serve in ministerial positions or run for parliament. That impediment must be removed. If they were planning having constitutional reforms in a year or 2 years, they need to have it now. Now, because if anything that this were proved to anyone who was reluctant to believe it, was the dearth of managerial talent in this country. It's all about managing situations, whether it's a bad situation or a good situation. You have to manage it, and manage it well, and the result has to be positive. What we saw was a systemic failure. The problem is that those people who are trying to capitalize on this whole situation are somehow framing that the systemic failure was a result of this government. The systemic failure is a result of a cultural defect that is fed by history, by 30 years of horrible management in the country, by outflow of brains, by utter corruption which didn't leave any room for the development of managerial skills. And those with managerial skills are mostly in the public sphere, because why would they come into the, in the private sphere? Why would they come to the public sphere when it pays for nothing? And as the government tries to, take small steps like, bonuses, try to rectify the situation through bonuses, the bonuses have somehow become like this big monster. Every ill and every problem in this country is caused by these bonuses. Never mind that during the old regime, bonuses were passed out cash in envelopes to every employee. Never mind that the reason government employees have such low salaries is because the economy hasn't developed in 20 years, 25 years. Of course, I think this government should have just taken the courageous step. The parliament should have passed laws that increase the salaries and therefore eliminate this bonus system. Just increase people's salaries, because if it's a salary, it's a salary, it's part of the law, it is what it is. But when you're paying people bonuses in order to be able to keep whatever talent it is that you have in the government, it can be interpreted the wrong way. It can look like you're somehow awarding a government that is otherwise doesn't deserve an award. So my solution, which I've proposed to the government, I've proposed to the Prime Minister, and we're going to move in this direction, is eliminate these impediments, because if there is the best economic specialist out there, we need to hire him and bring him and have him work as minister. If there's a great minister in emergency situations, we need to hire him, bring him, have him work in Armenia, and create a culture of management. I mean, that's how it has to be done. In the meantime, because that will take some time, we need to bring people at the status of deputy minister and attach them to every minister. People who are strong leaders, strong ministers will never be threatened by a strong person assisting them. They will welcome it, they will encourage it. If there is internal resistance to this, it's only going to be by people who don't deserve to be in their positions, shouldn't be in their positions, and therefore that's the end of the story. But we need to bring talent, management skills, professional resources from the outside, because we have them amply outside. There's no shortage of it, and we need them badly here now.
Nothing I disagree with. And again, I'm going to be very critical. I think I have seen a complete failure in communication for the most part from the entirety of the government that you're a part of, starting from the top. On that infamous Sunday night, Monday morning, ceasefire signed at 1 o'clock. The Prime Minister should be talking to the country at 2, and not allow these various, ruffian elements doing what they did and disgracing the country. And I see this with the Armenia Fund issue of not clearly communicating where we're at, what needs to be done. And I think it creates this atmosphere, this zeitgeist of hopelessness and confusion. What are you going to do to fix this?
Again, it's part of our sort of broader cultural problem. I mean, there used to be a time, if you remember, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people would say, yeah, the country's in bad state, it's poor, it's very corrupt, I mean, it's run by thieves, but the military is great. At least the military is great. If this war demonstrated anything, it showed that that can't be the case. The military is not great. I mean, it's not a 21st century military. It's not equipped as such. It's not trained as such. You can't have a system that is on this level and then have an anomaly, like a superstructure in the system that's up here. If they're here, most likely everyone's going to be here. As a result, the quality of communications is a reflection of everything else. So, it was a very hard message to communicate to the public. So it was dual message, right? It's kind of a bipolar message. One is, there's hope, we're going to win, it's great, because you really have a failure on one front, which was, it turned out to be, at the end of the day, the only front that mattered. But then you had an entire front where our troops were able to keep it. They were able to defend. It was defended,
which causes a great amount of frustration.
Exactly. So once you start talking about how bad things are, then you're risking collapsing the other fronts, because everyone says, well, what are we doing here? But then again, the communication is a science. There's a way to eat, have the cake and eat it too. You can deliver the message in a better way. It's just that you need, like in the West, they have these PR companies whose job is only to communicate things, whether it's for selling things, whether it's for promoting things, whether it's for lobbying things, but there's an entire science attached to communication. And during wartime, you need a scientific approach. So the solution to this issue is the same solution that we have to every other issue. In the short term, attract the talent from outside. There's no shame in it. We should take pride in it. We're a global nation. Why waste our talent? Why have our good PR professionals improve and add value to some other company outside of Armenia? Let's improve ourselves. And in the long term, it's all about education. It's about how we reform this education system so that we produce individuals that are ready and capable to function productively in the 21st century. Because right now we have late 20th century education system that hasn't been reformed, and at best. And we have what we have.
Well, listen, I wanted to, first of all, thank you for taking tough questions.
Always ready.
And I wanted to thank you for your valuable time. I know you're busy with a million things. So thank you for joining us, High Commissioner Sinanyan.
Thank you very much.
This is your host of CivilNet, Eric Hacopian, and thank you for joining us.